On today's Man of the Apes, Todd's going to break out into hives, getting ready to talk about music theory.
Yay! They greenlit the sequel without a story in mind. They just wanted to equal an unexpected gold mine. He said, oh no, as Heston said, I got to go. These are just some of the facts you ought to know as we go. Beneath the minute of the apes. Beneath the minute of the apes. Beneath the minute of the apes.
The only good human is a dead human.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. It's Richard and Sean with me today, and I am Todd.
Happy
on a Thursday. I tried to
Thursday.
flip it.
I
Give
know.
you guys
I was
first.
surprised by that. I'm like,
Just doesn't sound right anymore.
No.
Okay, fine. Hey, hang on.
You
Strike
can
that.
stop billing.
Strike it, reverse
It's
that.
Sean and Richard,
Yes.
and I'm just Todd. We are up to minute 73. This
74.
is 74. I hadn't scrolled my notes. Hang on. Strike that. We're at minute 74.
All right.
Sean, tell us what's going on.
All right, we're going to start minute 74 with more and more horses marching forward, and ends with a congregation saying, "His sound has gone out unto all the lands."
That was really
Was that
good.
it?
Sure.
I'm
Why
going to
not?
drink more beer because it's going to make the rest of this more fun. Here's minute 74.
The heavens declare the glory of the bomb, and the firmament showeth his handiwork.
All right, as of minute 74, we got 3 living humans, a psychor telepath, 4 dead humans, 1 dead ape, a shootness of apes, and a gaggle of humans. All right, so is it me, but the ape army has no formation discipline unless they're marching in a line. Once they get to their location, they all just bunch up together.
Well, okay, so one of the shots that Todd wanted to see for this longest time was kind of this, we're going to cheat the number of people there by doing the shot kind of up on people walking, and the scene actually opens on exactly what Todd wanted to see.
And it looks great, doesn't
Which
it?
is
Makes
it
the
does.
army
It looks
look bigger,
gorgeous.
yeah.
It's a line of horses with apes on the horseback, and it's shot kind of up, so you just see the legs of the horse with a little bit of the body and the apes, and it could be 20 of them, but it looks like just a line of horses.
Mhm. It is that illusion, and it also gives them the power. They now have power because they're bigger than
bigger
the
than
frame.
everything.
In fact, the way that you show me that, they're almost framed out of the frame. They're too big to fit in it. There are tons of reasons why you do that. Now, we get back into this, and this is Sean's crux of the whole film, is that it's tons and tons of shots of people f***ing walking.
Doing nothing.
So,
Well, we get
Considering we're
more
so
of the cannons. I mean, the next cut after that line of shots is like, here's some cannons rolling into this area.
Yeah,
Well,
but
what-
then, I mean, we've got, 20 minutes left in this movie. Then they're going to spend 5 minutes just loading the cannons, if they're ever going to use them. Then 3 minutes shooting the cannon. I mean, come on.
well,
Let's
I
go.
also found the choice of that shot you just showed us, Richard. You showed another that's more of it's a mid-level shot. There's nothing interesting about the angle. You're just seeing people ride horses. And in that shot, their approach is a little chaotic, as though they're still wrangling up everything, yet the previous shot had been them in unison
Right.
marching, and I thought these two shots don't
They'll
belong
work
in the
together,
same.
yeah.
Yeah.
When they get to their location, they lose all
They could
discipline.
they could have put 3 of those cannons together and shown us the title of those cannons moving in versus that. Then at 10 seconds in, we get a shot of Ursus and Zaius kind of riding up on a hill, which I thought was an interesting choice, as if they're about to lead into where they're going. I mean, they're in the choice of the hill, because the landscape at this point has just been gray, and they actually specifically picked a hill or a rock or a ridge to climb up on that actually is kind of red. Mm-hmm. I thought it was kind of a nice color choice to have that balance between the red and the sandstone gray and the blue behind it. And Ursus rides up, and then right behind him you see Zaius kind of coming along, and then we get a tide on Ursus as he stares in, and then
all the undisciplined
apes again react to something unusual.
Yep.
Right? Even though they're not on the top of the ridge yet, they're still reacting to something unusual. And then, are you ready for it? Because I'm watching it.
Bring it.
Ursus looks behind at the apes that are reacting to nothing that we see. And Zaius doesn't bite his hand this time, but
we see the ruins.
But we see his mouth come open a little bit, and then boom, ruins.
So,
which answers something from an earlier couple minutes. The ruins are not below ground; they're above ground.
It does, and I did know that was coming. But I called for the reason I brought that up too at that time was I think that again this is a place where this is the wrong place to put this kind of thing. We needed to have the apes feel as though they're in a foreign location where they're somewhere that things are wrong. For them just to be riding in more desert, they don't feel that.
Maybe if they had come on the remains of a car as they're coming up there.
Yes.
A newsstand.
Anything like that, twisted metal.
Parts of an actual paved road.
Right. Something that basically said you're in somewhere. It's a forbidden zone. It needs to almost immediately be something that feels wrong. Again, if you had done that, if you'd taken in these other suggestions of telling the story of the apes and all these kind of things, now you're building a story. As this is, it's this... Well, dude, they just saw the lawgiver crying blood. Why are they giving a shit about twisted metal?
So we saw the post subway. We saw a lot of New York buried. We saw the library. We saw
Grand Central
Station buried. So the shock of seeing New York City with its skyscrapers partially buried, but the skyscrapers still there and desolate, was not a surprise.
No.
It should be a shock to them,
but I'm
not sure the visuals are something they know what they are.
Yeah, they have no reference to it. They can see, wow, those are taller structures. Ours only go 3 high or something like that.
Right, and that should be the shock.
Yeah,
is that these are things that we can't even think about building at this time.
How do they have something go 100 stories in the sky?
And how do you tell this story? What about a horse hoof? You go to a shot of horse hoofs that are on dirt, and suddenly you hear a sharp clack as it hits asphalt that somehow survived, and they're walking on asphalt. They're all looking around, what's that? Then they see the steel girders of a highway, whatever it may be that leads them into this. You don't just, to your point, Richard, we've already seen it. A masterful, bam, here it is not shocking. If it's a slow build, we begin to realize, as we as an audience have the time to look and say,
it gets stranger and stranger.
Right, it's like, oh my God, you're allowed to think, to them, this is foreign. Instead, that just becomes like, well, what the f*** is that?
But as a question of being foreign, I mean, if you saw this,
it's supposed to be shocking to us as the audience, not them as the apes. But this is not shocking to us because we already know this information.
Yeah,
we've known it from the end of the last movie.
If we were the apes, would you see this as a scary force? Like, I mean, they look like they're already in ruins.
Yeah, you go. I see what I'm assuming is buildings because we have buildings that go more than one story because we have that like amphitheater and stuff like that. So they know how to build up. The only shocking thing would be how are they have things built so tall. Not what are they, just how are they so tall?
And that's why I again think that a slow ramp of what they see to where it becomes big is at least something. But what needs to happen then, how shocking would it be if they came around and they saw the remains of a park that maybe had a statue of a human
Kids
family holding hands or something like that, and they saw something that is entirely foreign?
Or they came across a New York Zoo and all the
pictures.
Exhibits are empty, obviously, but they're seeing pictures of monkeys in cages and stuff like that. What is this?
That'd be fantastic. Or if they came across something that was more technologically advanced, they came across an actual gun, not a rifle.
Right.
Just this idea of the cityscape that's already burned out. Like, I'd be like, why should I be afraid of that?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's crazy, unusual, but it just already looks like ruins to them.
That'd be like
not fantastic.
Us with no point of reference stumbling across the Colosseum right now. You go, wow, that's a really big thing, but that means nothing to me.
Can I assume this is a painting and not an actual?
It's a map painting.
Yeah.
The zoom kind of threw me. Like I'm like, I'm zooming in on a painting.
You can zoom on mats as long as you
And
don't
also
get to
depends
it
on
just
how
felt
big they paint
weird.
the map painting,
absolutely.
yeah.
And you can also do that. You can actually shoot through mats. You can leave
You leave a little
areas.
hole in it. So, yeah, what they would do is imagine if we had a big glass painting right here, Richard, and we wanted to put you in the back of the store, we would make the glass painting whatever we want, but leave a little hole there just for the camera to shoot in perfectly and get you in there. So we could put you in whatever location we wanted just by leaving a little hole in the glass to shoot you through.
There's a great example in Star Wars when Obi-Wan Kenobi's going to the tractor beam, and it's looking down. You know, it's got this little thing where he is, and the Death Star trench is this big, deep thing. Well, that's a map painting that's got a hole in the middle so Alec Guinness could walk around
And they
in
just
the
built
actual
that little set and had the camera set up far enough away and the glass in front of it that they could just shoot.
And they can either shoot it like that, or they can even composite those together later. But you leave one open for the other. I don't think there's anything open on this shot. It didn't look like they're putting anything there.
Painting of it, yeah.
But
So we are 30 seconds into this particular minute, and then we suddenly get kind of a fade. A fade to the organ, and somebody playing. The music comes in,
to the boring.
and it's typically with the map painting. Here's desolated New York.
Here's
30
Desolated
seconds in.
Cathedral.
We're gonna fade into somebody playing an organ on the cathedral.
can
The cathedral.
I backtrack again one
Sure.
more time to the city?
I don't know.
Sean, I'm ignoring you. I'm talking to Richard. This is an A, B, see you later. If they had done the city first, before we see the burning apes, the lawgiver, I just want to imagine what the apes are feeling at that point if they're already off kilter because of the city.
Right.
Now, when we're here, that is all the chaos that we need these characters to feel. And I actually think that the shot of the organ would work beautifully if we had seen the escalation of this, where it's the city, they're introduced to elements of it, they see the shock of it, then maybe they see this idea of they see the zoo or something like that, then they see the apes like this. They're left in a state of chaos. An organ could be this wonderful, moment. I think it's a cool cut. It's just so poorly constructed that it comes off of, why the F am I seeing an organ at this point?
I mean, can you imagine the choir music playing as the apes are experiencing the visions?
Oh, that's a great choice.
I mean, can you imagine what they're saying about
they cross cut between the two
what
of
they
them.
say
Yeah.
about what's happening and who they're praising and all that kind of stuff? And it could be cuts, it could be not cuts, but you hear the choir organ playing as they're reacting to these giant
Cityscape,
religious
yeah.
visions and the cityscape, and they get into the city and then see the you're right. I mean, you're right about that point. That'd be fantastic.
So is this the point where I can start talking music theory?
Yes,
Wait.
Well, we start having the music right here.
All right, but let me just mention, because I
Yes.
mentioned this in the
Go
last
ahead.
minute. This scene was actually supposed to take place earlier.
Okay.
Oh, you did mention that.
Right.
Yes.
It took place before we actually got into the apes riding into town. Let me see if I can find the moment. No, I can't.
This is riveting podcasting. We're
sorry.
watching. Oh, don't be sorry.
Watching me go through my notes.
No, Richard's going through the notes. So Richard always does a great job of hang on.
using
You got
his
it?
crazy notes.
Richard has the printed script of Dane's. I'm going to guess his final draft for shooting probably before revisions came in, because there's no note on when revisions posted. But he does a great job of going through and knowing all this for us. But as you can imagine, sometimes it does take a bit to dig through.
So the point that I was going with is what was supposed to happen at this moment is Brent and Casplay and Mendez are kind of grilling Brent. Tell us about the apes, Mr. Brent. And then we actually cut to the apes leaving the city, and we get our scene with Zira and Cornelius about
really?
about them going off to war.
Yeah,
And
that's way back.
as they go off to war, we see them dealing with the protesters.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the protesters, we jump to the cathedral. And then we get this entire minute, and the next minute are supposed to happen after the protesters.
That's really weird. I don't see how that would work at all.
Yeah, it's way out of, especially.
Instead, that one scene with Zero and Cornelius are inserted like 20 minutes earlier.
Right.
Especially since it feels like the church service is kind of trying to force us towards the ending to put that so much further into the movie rather than where it is now. Doesn't seem right.
Because the church service with the bomb, I mean, I'm just trying to think if you entered